spectre of Houthi terror looms over the Red Sea and beyond. Today marked a new unprecedented development, as for the first time since the Houthi rebels started targeting merchant vessels in support of Palestinian independence, 3 crew members of a ship have been killed. According to reports, a Barbados-flagged Greek-operated merchant vessel by the name of MV True Confidence was struck by a Houthi drone and resulted in the deaths of 3 crew members. 4 others were also injured in this attack, following which the Indian Navy sprang into action. The INS Kolkata, which has been deployed on anti-piracy missions in the Arabian Sea, responded swiftly to the distress call and rescued the crew, which consisted of 1 Indian citizen. The rescued crew members were then evacuated to Djibouti, and the fire on the cargo ship was quickly doused by the INS Kolkata. This is yet another incident showcasing the Indian Navy's commitment and prowess in being a first responder in the region, and the second in 2 days. Before we begin our discussion, here's Captain Sharad Sisunwal, commanding officer of the INS Kolkata, speaking about the naval vessel's action in the region. Listen in.
We use the helicopter and we pull up 8 people, and then we send our boat, because some people are very injured, so they cannot come by helicopter. So we send 2 boats, and we put them in the boat and brought them to the ship. Now we have come here. We are very happy that the Djibouti government has very quickly given us berth, and 9 ambulances have come, and so many doctors. I think it is very good. It shows that how much Djibouti cares for people who are at sea.
All right, joining us to talk more about this at this point in time is Ambassador Veena Sikri, former diplomat. Commodore Anil Jay Singh, former Navy officer, also with us on the program. Major General Dhruv Katoch, defense expert, director of India Foundation, joins us on the program as well. Captain Alok Bansal, former Navy officer, director of the India Foundation, also with us on the program. General Katoch, I'll begin with you, sir. Thank you for being here. It's good to have you after a long time. I hope you can hear me. So, you know, this menace that we are getting to see, which is obviously propelled by the Houthi rebels, is gotten the entire world worried. The Americans, in fact, it was even brought up in the Congress that, if the Americans cannot stop such an attack, randomized attacks on vessels which are treading and facilitating the supply chain and the defense chain of the world, then obviously America is no longer the savior and the protector of the world. We have a new kid in town. We have a new kid on the block, and that's, of course, India that's taking on to this responsibility. This is not a showcase of our soft power, but this is also a showcase of India's resolve to be a leader in this space, to be somebody who doesn't take such attacks lying down. Your thoughts, sir?
Thank you, Vineet. Vineet, I think it is very important. It's a very important milestone as far as the Indian Navy is concerned. That such rescue missions have been carried out. Over the past month or so, this is not the first mission. Earlier missions have also been carried out. I personally am aware of when I had gone to one of the ships, INS Kochi. They had just come back from the Red Sea, and that was an anti-piracy mission which had taken place, and they rescued the crew members. They couldn't get the pirates because of certain other issues, but the crew members were rescued. Now, in this particular case, again, the crew have been rescued, though we've had casualties, and one of the crew was also an Indian. I don't think these, when we are looking at the Red Sea, it is going to be a problem area for quite some time, because it is not just the Houthis who are acting by themselves. The Houthis are being given support, and to get the sort of intelligence to be able to target shipping correctly requires a bigger power than what the Houthis have. And here I believe it is the Iranians who are giving them support, at least intelligence support if nothing else, so that they can carry out the shipping. India has made a mark as far as the Western Ocean is concerned, and it is as per the commitments of the Prime Minister that we will, when he talks of free and open shipping, this is really part of that commitment. Though, of course, India has said that we are not going to get involved in the war. And when the Americans targeted Houthi positions, India was not involved in that. But in all other areas where it involves keeping the sea lanes open, I think India is involved and the Indian Navy is doing an absolutely creditable job. Vineet.
Ambassador Veena Sikri, how do you see the situation? It's an uncertain situation. It's a negative situation. But do you think that India is thinking in the right direction? We are showing that gumption. We are showing that pragmatism. That this is an opportunity where India can not only, in fact, benefit the people who are troubled, and traumatized by these attacks, but also come out as a savior in this region and establish its dominance.
Yes, absolutely. I think that the event has highlighted how INS Kolkata has come to the rescue in a very strong manner and has actually rendered life-saving assistance to the members. But I think there are 2 points that I'd like to highlight here. One is that this particular incident highlights a major escalation in what has been going on in the Red Sea. It is the first instance that there's been a civilian death. All this while, since November 19th, when the Houthis began their attacks on Red Sea shipping, there were civilian casualties, and many times there were civilian attacks. But at all times, we saw that many times Indian naval ships and others came to the rescue, and major difficulties, major problems were prevented. But this time there have been at least 3 deaths and many more critical. So this is being seen as a very major escalation. The second major escalation is the repeated use of very sophisticated ballistic missiles by the Houthi rebels. Now, I think this is a clear indication that they are receiving this weaponry probably from Iran. I don't think there's any doubt about it. And they have had parades in the capital of Yemen, highlighting the capacities they have, the ballistic missiles they have, the drones they have. But in the last 2 days, this is the 5th ballistic missile they have used, and this has hit the target and probably destroyed the ship and caused so many casualties. The INS Kolkata has been absolutely on the ball in rescuing people, in taking away many more, including one Indian national, many more sailors who were on the ship, and providing life-saving medical assistance to many others. But the representation of what the INS Kolkata has done is completely missing from the international media. Reuters, CBS News, anything you see, there's not a single mention of INS Kolkata. There's just this huge highlight on what this attack represents, a great escalation, a worrying escalation, and what it's going to mean. The whole thing began because the Houthi rebels said right from the beginning of the Hamas attack on Israel and the retaliation by Israel after the October 7th attack, the Houthi said they're going to be in support of Israel and they're going to go on till the siege of, in support of Gaza, of the Hamas, and they're going to go on till the siege of Gaza by Israel stops. And now then from January onwards, from about mid-January, we've had UK and USA coming in retaliation and trying to retaliate, trying to hit targets of the Houthi bases in Yemen. And they claim to have made a difference, but the Houthis have repeatedly said that these attacks by UK and USA have made no difference to their capacity to attack. So my worry is that this is a major escalation. And I think that this is going to, looks like it's going to be for the long haul. Already it has meant a major disruption. Many shipping channels have stopped using the Red Sea. They're taking a long journey, huge increase in costs, huge increase in fuel usage, and we're going to see an escalation of trade values, of transportation values, which is going to have a downward impact on the trade economy of the world. So all in all, it could also mark a major escalation by the retaliation from UK and USA. This could also now be planned. I think the Iranians, with their backing of the Houthi rebels, have a lot to answer for. And I think that it is time that this is taken up very seriously, because otherwise this is a substantial and substantive escalation of what is happening in the Red Sea, which is a matter of great concern and worry.
All right. Absolutely right, ma'am. Commodore Singh, if you can hear me, sir.
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you.
Right. Well, this is an initiation on behalf of the Houthis. And this is something which has not seen, a disruption by too many powers. India, of course, has come out in support of not only defending its own, but, other players in international waters as well. How do you see this, becoming into something more severe and something, which, India's allies will also be looking forward, or rather looking at India to resolve?
Well, as has been highlighted, I think this is a very dangerous escalation that has taken place. The moment loss of life happens, it takes things to a different dimension. And this being the first attack where people have actually lost their lives, people have been injured earlier, has definitely brought things back into focus. As far as the Houthi rebels are concerned, they're not going to let up on this attack because for them it's serving a twofold agenda. Their support of the Palestinian cause plus their own agenda, or whatever that might be. And of course, they're getting enough state support because for the kind of weaponry that's being used and the amount of quantity that they have of that kind of sophisticated weaponry, it's not something they can muster on their own. In fact, besides the anti-ship cruise missiles and anti-ship ballistic missiles that the ambassador referred to, they've also used underwater drones. Now, underwater drones is something very sophisticated, and that takes things into a different light because that cannot be countered by just firing at a missile and intercepting it, or firing at a drone and intercepting it. It's an unknown entity coming from from an opaque dimension, so it'll start bringing in the anti-submarine element into the operations. So this is something we've got to be really concerned about. The escalation that is now taking place is that, if the Americans start bombing the Houthi positions, which they have been doing under Operation Poseidon Archer, and the Royal Navy has been doing it, and Houthis retaliate with attacks against American and British ships, they've already said, we consider American and British ships also now enemy. So this is a very dangerous phase we are in. India, I think, has done extremely well to stay out of the shooting game and done a remarkable job in the next step of actually providing support primarily initially against piracy, but now also against these Houthi attacks. And India should do that. India has always been considered the preferred security partner in the Indian Ocean. Countries look towards India, and our maritime credentials in this regard are absolutely impeccable. So what India is doing is not something new. India takes its responsibility very, very seriously. And we've seen that initially from deploying 5 ships, it went to 10 ships, it's gone to 12 ships, there are P-8I aircraft in the air, there are drones being put into service. So this is the problem that navies all over the world have understood the gravity of this problem. Because any conflict that spills over into the maritime domain is going to have global economic repercussions sooner rather than later. In this case, it's not only about the economic repercussions, it's also about energy security. If Iran gets directly involved in this conflict, and every indication seems to point towards that with the kind of rhetoric that's flowing up and down, there would be a chance of energy coming out of the Arabian Gulf also getting jeopardized. 60% of oil flow comes out of there. So if Iran gets involved in this, or the Houthis decide to take the battle further into the Arabian Sea, then there is also some element of risk as far as energy coming out of the Arabian Gulf is concerned. And that impacts India directly. Besides, of course, most of the rest of the world as well. So I think India is doing a great job. India is taking its responsibility of being a preferred security partner. It is securing the Indian Ocean. It has taken that responsibility. But where this will end up now, it's reached a very dangerous sort of point. Till the Israel-Hamas conflict doesn't get resolved, I don't think the Houthis are going to let up on whatever they're doing because it's serving their purpose as well. So it's very difficult to predict right now where this is going to head in terms of the kinetic aspect. In terms of economic aspect, the longer this continues, the greater is going to be the impact on the global economy. And it's going to start pinching sooner rather than later.
Right, absolutely, sir. Captain Bansal, the Houthis have obviously been ruling 70% of Yemen. They've been struck before by the British and the Americans as well, but that really has not deterred them in the past to change their ways. India has had this excellent reputation with the OIC and countries in the Gulf. Do you think that is also something that can be articulated and leveraged upon, to come to a solution which is perhaps not as violent as the one we are getting to see? They're obviously not in agreement with what Israel is doing in Gaza. And as the dissent grows against Israel, they have some sort of if we can use the word, quasi-legitimacy, to do all of this.
See, we need to understand that Houthis gain not only quasi-legitimacy, they have managed to expand their support base. Because till this attack started, Houthis were seen as just a Zaidi separatist group. They were actually a small subsect of Shia Islam, supported by Iran. And of course, in the wider Islamic world, they were seen as sectarian separatists. They had proved to be good fighters because they had managed to thwart a combined force of Saudi Arabia, UAE, backed by the Yemenis national government, which is based in Aden. And they have managed, so they had projected that they have the capability, they are good fighters, They managed to withhold despite attacks being carried out by other countries. But they were still seen as a very, very small subsect with a very, very small support base. Now, having come out in support of a Sunni outfit, that is Hamas in Gaza, they have tried to firstly expand their arena of support. Now, they are what Houthis are doing, regrettably, is getting support from a large chunk of Arabs across the Arabian Peninsula. So that is that. As far as Iranian support is concerned, obviously, if Houthis are firing anti-ship ballistic missiles, they're coming from somewhere. There has been no concrete proof that Iran is supporting them, but yes, by inference, it is inevitable that this sort of a sophisticated weaponry cannot be developed by Houthis in-house. So it is coming from somewhere, and I think the most probable place from where it could be coming is Iran. I don't think so Iran would jump into the fray because Iranians don't want to get into the conflict. Persian Gulf, to that extent, will remain safe for the time being. As Iran said very categorically, and what US has also tried to do, US is targeting all Iran's allies, not Iran directly. So they are targeting people in Iraq, Syria, Yemen, etc. Wherever they feel that pro-Iranian militias are there or groups are there, they are being targeted. Now, Indian Navy, by this act of rescuing, has emerged as the first responder. And that's very, very important because we are the largest littoral navy in the Indian Ocean region. And in this part of the world, I think the countries are now looking up to Indian Navy. Now, this superb act by INS Kolkata has established Navy's credentials because in the past also, be it Mozambique, be it other countries, they have been approaching Indian Navy to provide them offshore security. There have been our neighbors who have been requesting Indian Navy to rescue their citizens from troubled areas. In fact, we rescued many of the citizens of our neighbors from Yemen itself when we evacuated. So from that period, we have emerged as a credible force. And now the way we have provided succor to this ship, which was hit by Houthi missile, we have again established our credentials.
Absolutely.
That in case of any crisis,
General Katoch, if you look at the methodology of behavior and pathology as well for the Houthis as well as Hamas, it's very, very similar. Like I said, what's happening in Israel and Gaza has lent some sort of a quasi-legitimacy to what they're doing, though it's not legit. 25,000 civilians have died in Gaza at this point in time. The Americans and, of course, the UK government continue to call the Houthis as an enemy. Could there be a third party that could perhaps, bring these people to the table and offer some sort of a stability? Because, if we keep counter-attacking for an attack, this is likely to blow up into an escalation which could embroil, a large part of the civilized world.
Very, very frankly, Vineet, I think the only party which can put pressure on the Houthis is Iran. And Iran can be pressurized by other powers like, say, China and Russia. But as far as the Houthis are concerned, they can only be pressurized directly by the Iranians. And I don't see that happening as of now. If the situation has to stabilize to some extent, then I think there has to be a rapprochement between Saudi Arabia and Iran. I don't see that rapprochement happening because I think these attacks were carried out precisely to prevent that rapprochement from taking place. So as of now, I think it's a very complicated situation. What I've really not understood is that the Americans, with all their intelligence and satellites on the air, in space, why can't they determine where these weapons are located from where the Houthis are using them? It doesn't require rocket science. It's a very small area. And they should be able to find out where the weapons are located and from where they are being fired and then engage them. So this in a way also reflects on the US capability to monitor situations and to act as the so-called policeman of the world. In your opening remarks, you very rightly said is it no longer, the level of unilateralism which was prevailing is no longer there. But if peace has to come here, one of the panelists also mentioned, the fear of spread into the Persian Gulf. Now, if it spreads into the Persian Gulf, India, of course, is impacted, but so is China. So I think it is in everybody's interest to see that this situation stabilizes, because there are only two countries which are independent of, independent as far as energy resources are concerned. One is Russia and the other is America. Now, besides these two, the rest of the world is going to be very seriously impacted. And I think it behoves on all of us to get together to ensure that some element of stability once again prevails in the Red Sea and does not spill over into the Western Ocean. Beneath.
Ambassador Sikri, we'll take concluding thoughts from the rest of our panelists. So where do you think this is going? General Katoch said that Iran is perhaps a country that can bring some sort of a stability, get these parties onto a common table and perhaps a chat. I was also hoping that India could be a part of that conversation, could be a part of that table as well. Because India has earned its seat on that table.
Yeah, absolutely right. I fully support the idea that India can and should play an active role to bring the parties together. Iran at the moment is not at all interested in settling the situation. In fact, the news yesterday was that Iran is trying to escalate the situation in the Persian Gulf, because yesterday they announced that American $50 million of crude oil from Kuwait that was destined for Chevron Corporation in America, which had been seized by Iran last year. They had just gone down on a helicopter and seized the ship. They announced yesterday that they were going to confiscate the oil. A deliberate escalation. Why should they announce it yesterday after 1 year? It's a deliberate escalation. They are looking for escalation. They may even stop or affect Persian Gulf shipments from now on. So I think it is a major worry. I think 2 or 3 things should happen. India's role in the Gulf, in Indian Navy's role in the Gulf has really come of age. We have always been seen just as a coastal navy. We have now proven ourselves on the open seas as a first defender of the peace and security. We have acted against piracy, and we are now acting directly in this quasi-militarized situation in the Red Sea, and with great effect and great positivity. So this, I think, has to be brought to the notice of the world. This is very important because India's role comes from there. And India's role also gives it the right to talk about it, because our Navy has been showing its honor, its battle colors in defending peace and security in the Red Sea. So we have the right to talk about it to the world. So India can take a position that, look, we've been doing this. We've seen on the seas how the situation is escalating, the dangers in the next few weeks. Let us talk about it. India can even take an initiative on this. And I think our Navy's wonderful colors that they have shown, success that they have shown, gives us the authority and strength to do so. I agree with you that India should take a role.
All right. Commodore Singh, concluding thoughts, sir?
Yes, I agree with what's been said. India has to play a more important role. We are one of the very few countries in the world which over the years has had good relations with just about everybody in the Gulf, whether it was Iran or Israel at the same time. Now, that is something we must leverage. This good relationship that we've had with the Gulf, our own, equations with these countries, we must leverage this to advantage in brokering a peace or in brokering some sort of dissipation of this threat, because this is not a threat to India or to any isolated country. It's a threat to the global economy. And I think the world has to come together, but India has to take a leading position in this. And as has been brought out, the Indian Navy has given India that leverage to be able to take a strong position on this and be a major negotiator, or whatever one might like to call it. But I think it's very important that India must play a more important role, because otherwise, this kind of thing will continue till the cows come home. The Houthis will keep attacking and there'll be counterattacks, and that's not the way to solve this problem in any case. Nothing has been ever solved militarily, so to speak.
Right. And Captain Bansal, when it comes to India and when it comes to, extremists, there is perhaps less baggage associated with us as compared to the Americans and the Europeans. So you're muted. I can't hear you.
See, there is no doubt that we don't have any baggage, and we are ideally suited to mediate, actually. But somehow in the past we have been a little reluctant to mediate. The fear of failure has, I think, probably deterred us from mediating in such complex issues. But I think in this particular issue we can. If you just see, just a few days back, Houthis had said very clearly that any ship entering our water has to take permission. Now this is against, because actually freedom of navigation allows the right of innocent passage. But what Houthis are saying goes against the international norms. And I think it should be feasible to speak to them because Houthis have been quite isolated. As of now, they've really not had any support from the global community, barring Iran. So I think we need to put a certain amount of pressure. Maybe we should be able to reach out to them through Iran because Houthis themselves would not like to antagonize India also because India is not a partisan party as far as this conflict is concerned. So we have right credentials. We have our presence in waters of Yemen. So obviously we can make an impact. And as a result, I think if we start taking some initiatives, we may be able to move forward. At least we could ask Houthis to commit not to attack innocent shipping or merchant shipping which is heading through their waters. Though, of course, Houthis would like to make some sort of symbolic gestures in support of Gaza because this gives them a great leverage. Because please understand, they are also having a conflict going on. Now it becomes a very difficult thing when Houthis are supporting Gaza and you have another Arab army which is actually fighting them. In the eyes of a common Arab, the people who are trying to fight Houthis get delegitimized. And that's why I think Houthis will continue this sort of a drama to get greater legitimacy because that puts greater pressure on Saudi Arabia when they're trying to fight Houthis. So it's a complex situation, but I think India, with good relations both with Saudi Arabia and Iran, is, I think, ideally suited to take the initiative to at least bring some sort of a order, some semblance of an order as far as global shipping is concerned, which passes through Red Sea.
Fair enough, sir. Appreciate everyone joining us on this debate. We, of course, expect the world also to realize that India is going to I beg your pardon, India is going to bring its own approach. It's going to bring ideas and creativity, which of course the Western world has failed to come up with. And that's why this conflict keeps coming up time and again.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.